Hello class, this is the class American History 2, 1865 to more recent times. And today we're going to talk about two movements, the late 19th century and early 20th century, and that's first populism and then progressivism. So first let's talk about populism. This was a movement in the late 19th centuries which focused on the interests of farmers, especially in the West and the Midwest, and their interests, and they felt like they were being burdened to a great extent by big business corporations and these types. And they started a regional party, then it grew into a national party and became interested, especially in the issue of currency being gold and silver, the gold standard, silver standard, and things like bimetallism and things of that nature. They became came to national prominence with the People's Party and would have certain would focus on certain even religious biblical things as far as what they would think as some of their standards. They talked about Second Thessalonians 3:10, that if anyone should not work, they should not eat, and would focus on immigration as one of the things, unwanted immigration from people that were taking jobs from hardworking farmers, Midwesterners, and people from those regions. Again, wealthy businessmen were one of their targets, and would talk about the gold standard. And the problem there was the devaluation of silver, and those who were more rich having more in gold coinage, and really put them at a disadvantage. There was the Coinage Act of 1873 that established the gold standard, and those who did not agree with this would call this the crime of 73, or the crime of 1873. So and made it so their interests weren't as prominent. So one big leader in this movement was from South Carolina. South Carolina, his name was Pitchfork Ben Tillman, and he saw the farmers as in bondage to big businesses and corporations. In South Carolina, he wasn't a fan of the social elite, such as in the lower country, Charleston, and at bigger colleges, such as what was called then the College of South Carolina, now the University of South Carolina, and was very happy when, in the 1880s, that the Clemson College was established, and and uh, focused on agriculture as opposed to big business, and business as serious majors. So that was something he was interested in, and was more from the upper country of South Carolina, where Clemson, now Clemson University, is still, and still puts a big emphasis on agriculture. So he was elected governor in 1890. He had a downside of populist, a more racist tendency. He said this: "The white have absolute control of the state government, and we intend at all hazards to retain it." So kind of a racist pulse there. So more Midwestern, that was from South Carolina, more Midwestern populists were willing to work with non-white people. One example there is Kansas school teacher Mary Elizabeth Lease. She was the daughter of Irish immigrants, and she said that, in a common view, that the people were slaves to Wall Street. In 1890, she was part of this, the Ocala demands, and which encouraged silver, bimetallism, again, a constant theme, silver coins to be used, and more power to the people. And one big emphasis and something pushed for was the direct election of U.S. senators, which was not the case during this time, and would come eventually in 1913 with the 16th and 17th Amendments. The big political push was in the 1892 election. There was a populist or a People's Party candidate, and they did not in any way win, but it was a time that where they got over 1 million votes in the popular votes, and they were definitely a force to be reckoned with. They carried 5 states in the Midwest and the West, and at this time the Democratic Party tried to bring them in to their fold and become more populist. In 1896, the candidate for the Democrats was William Jennings Bryan. William Jennings Bryan, a devout Presbyterian and important for this era of American history, Nebraska congressman. At the Democrat National Convention, he preached a famous, not preached, but he did have a famous speech that had religious overtones called the Cross of Gold. Again, emphasizing the silver standard and bimetallism there. And he said that the gold standard was a kind of crucifixion of the common man. He said this: "You shall not press down upon upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold." So the populists sought to get behind Bryan, and he eventually did lose and lost several times, 4 times in total, and to the Republican William McKinley, uh, and could not overcome the Republican victory there. So, and that was towards the end of populism, but it morphed and progressed into another movement and called progressivism, especially in the early 20th century. And this movement continued into the early, at least the early 20s, and had some similar emphases. And said if we work hard, if we are plan smart, think about our morals, we can help progress the nation into something better and fix the nation's problems. The goal of progressivism was to lift up the poor, lift up the working class. So you can see the similarities with populism there, and this movement especially emphasized factory workers. So everyone is moving away from the country. That's a big push. The populist impulse, in a way, is being put down to bring many people moving into the cities, working in the factories, and with this, there's a lot that needs to be changed. There's a lot of bad conditions in the factories and into this city life. And there was a group of journalists called that muckrakers, called muckrakers, and they would point out these problems in the factories and would encourage the good progress and good policies that were made that would help working people. One example is Upton Sinclair's The Jungle from 1906, and would focus on meatpacking plants in Chicago and all the things that were going on there. Swollen joints, missing fingers, sickening odors and disease and germs that were prevalent during the time. So there were economic woes during this time from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. 1893, there was the Panic of 1893, which was really a Great Depression. towards the early 20th century, they're coming out of that, and business is growing. J.P. Morgan, U.S. Steel are two examples of big corporations, and they're getting a lot of making a lot of the products, the output of products. About 92% of products are being sold by these larger corporations. Small shops are being put down, almost non-existent, and really the economy is thriving because of these larger corporations. So so many issues raised, um, and uh, strain in the factory and such. And progressives would have three main things that they were seeking to do. Three main areas of reform. One was regulating the big businesses, breaking up these businesses and corporations, and trying to do away with as much as they could monopolies. Uh, Theodore Roosevelt would say this, that the businesses focused on every human right as secondary to the business's profit, and this was something they were trying to eliminate. A second thing was a responsive democratic government. This was came from populism, something that they were very interested in, and this carried over into the progressive movement in the earliest 20th century. Corruption in politics was a big problem. Politicians had a lot of power. We can still see that even today, and these progressives were trying to put power back in the people. One big movement here was putting direct election of senators. We already talked about that, and that's something that progressives were able to finally have happen. Immigration, issues with immigration was a third thing. Cities were becoming overcrowded, and poverty was an issue, and the progressives were trying to alleviate poverty, help with education, housing, and try to make a better life for people. So, moral reforms, some negative things done by progressives at some points were restricting Jews and Catholics and Asians from becoming immigrants, and there was a lot of immigration from Mexico as well at this time. Uh, from a Christian point of view, there was the movement of the social gospel, which would say that the Christian message is best lived out in service to one's neighbor. This even led to some socialist impulses and socialist candidates being supported by Christians, especially primitive Baptists, Pentecostals, and it eventually led to the um, the support or some Christians even neglecting Orthodox Christian doctrine completely, with responses from conservative Christians developing the essays called the Fundamentals, and organizations being developed by folks like J. Gresham Machen with Westminster Seminary in 1929 in the South, Bob Jones University, and Bob Jones in 1927 founding that school. Several presidents during this time they all focused on progressivism. Theodore Roosevelt was one, youngest president in our history at 42 years of age, and he was an active president as opposed to other presidents that we've heard about before. From Reconstruction on, he had his bully pulpit and was interested in breaking up these big corporations and and making sure land was available that could be conserved, and national parks. Eventually, by 1908, there being 200 acres of land for national parks. After him, William Howard Taft, who didn't follow his lead on a lot of things, like he would like. He was his handpicked successor. But he did get, during his time, the 16th and 17th Amendment to help put power back in the people. The 16th Amendment to establish a federal income tax and the focus there would be to take more money away from the rich, give them more taxes, which they said would only be fair. And then finally, Woodrow Wilson would be the last president in this progressive era, which led up to World War One, and he would establish the Federal Reserve, which would be, of course, and always has been, very controversial. The Federal Trade Commission, the Antitrust Act in 1914, and he gets reelected to a second term. And by this time, progressivism is waning, and more of his focus is on staying out of the war, an America First policy, and he would keep America out of the war, and this is along with his uh, progressive policies. The main idea here is that America stays um, isolated in a way, and America is the focus, and keeping our own interests above the interests of the rest of the world. So thank you for listening. Have a good day.